And we're live. We are.
Alright, you're good.
All right, Madam Mayor.
Good morning on this cold, little frosty morning here on January 20th, 2026. This is our first budget and finance meeting for the year. Call the meeting to order. Mr. Wright, can you give us invocation?
Oh, let's go.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this day that you've given us, Lord. I thank you for the beautiful weather, Lord, hot or cold. Lord, I thank you for this great city we live in. I thank you for our great state and our great country that we live in. Lord, I ask that you give us wisdom today as we go through the budget and the finance. Lord, I ask that you again just give us wisdom and to make the right decisions, Lord, for what's best for the residents of this great city. And Lord, I thank you for those willing to serve on both council and all the other committees and everything we have to prepare the way for our city. And Lord, just give us wisdom, and Lord, just bless this meeting. We love you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Mr. Vick, want to do the pledge?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the reminder. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And you give me a roll call.
Yes, ma'am, I can. Councilman Lewandowski.
Here.
And Mayor Roosevelt.
I'm here.
Okay, Madam Mayor. You've got everybody that is supposed to be on this meeting.
Okay. Do we have any public comments?
We don't have any public comments registered?
Okay.
And nope, none in the room.
All right, and then we have a consent agenda from the meeting of, these are the budget and finance minutes from July 2024, correct?
Yes, ma'am, and I realize we've already actually published it, so I think we probably in August or September already approved these.
That's fine.
So this one was on me. I went back and double checked it. We've had these published for months now. So unless there was any concern again on them, I think they're good. You don't have to act on them.
Okay,
Unless, Councilman Lewandowski, you had.
So just as a reminder, I can't print at home, so unless I'm given a hard copy, I can't review it.
Okay. We'll correct that one on the next one if we have any additional items.
okay, and our action items, next is the current budget review of 25-26. This is Q1 performance.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor, if you don't mind, I will apologize. I don't think we locked down the date and time of this meeting until last Tuesday or Wednesday. We had some miscommunications on the date and time of this, both emails to council, but also it was published on the city calendar until yesterday, like next Thursday. So we did it's been on the agenda sheet since last Tuesday or Wednesday, on the agenda page, correct? The city website, but the date was off. I corrected that, noticed it, actually, Vice Mayor Welch pointed that out to me. We corrected that yesterday, and we also followed up this morning with a Facebook post with the date, time, and a link to get on YouTube to watch if anybody wanted to. So trying to do our best to catch all this up and get this meeting into our typical rhythm,
Yeah,
along with all the rest of them.
okay,
And so I'll go into the agenda item, which was number 5 on the agenda. Which
Can we
Yes, sir.
try to prevent this from happening next month? Because if we're gonna do it, I thought it was supposed to be at 9 a.m. the second Tuesday of the month. Is that when you have staff meetings?
It's the third Tuesday. Well, we had talked about it when we proposed the initial calendar. It was proposed as the third.
Right.
I didn't even pay attention. I dropped it on staff meetings, but also it now conflicts with me attending the Leadership Clay, which is the entire day on the third Tuesday of the month. And so this is, that begins next month. And so we do need to find a better cycle for this particular meeting throughout the rest of this calendar year or fiscal year that will fit y'all's.
And that's
schedule.
important to me.
yeah, because you've got us number 9 on here for us to talk about the timing for this future timing for the meetings. Item 9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can do that now if you want to advance that item or hold until that.
I mean, I just know we'll cover it, so whatever
Okay,
works.
all right. We can do it now.
Okay. We'll hit it on agenda item number.
Okay, it was just not on the original agenda that I saw, that I got.
So I printed this yesterday.
Yeah, I could print that out.
So, and I do apologize, what we're trying to do, our best with is to get an agenda published a week out and acknowledging, sometimes we won't have all the agenda items on there and we'll update it rather than just waiting till everything is perfect and publishing an agenda and people saying, well, you didn't publish it in enough time. So it's a bit of a balancing act. I don't think we're gonna make broadly anybody happy, but we're trying to, a week out, get the best version of the agenda published as we can and then update it if we need to.
So, for this meeting, I almost think a generic agenda is good enough.
Yeah.
Because it's not like we're gonna have a lot of different topics.
Right.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, just keep it simple, make it a generic, we're talking about this year's budget, next year's budget, long-term planning, meeting schedule, and those are the things on the agenda. And that's it.
Right.
I don't know that I printed the correct budget summary because then I see this one that says Monday at 10 a.m. Was that the one that was?
Yeah, that was the one. I can pull it up.
Sorry about that.
No,
So
no.
we'll print it for everyone then.
Yeah, if you don't
Okay.
mind, Tiffany, and then I can just pull up the email.
And, you know, just for the public, I wanna give all of you guys grace, because Jamie, you've been in this role since July 1st. Tiffany, a year ago, last August. And Wendy, you were the one that was here early, but we had a lot of challenges with everything related to the budget, to the audits, it goes on and on. And, you know, I look at us finding a standardized way is gonna be work for everybody, but I understand too, that's challenging trying to figure out what that exactly is. So I certainly, and I know Dan does too, appreciates everything you all do with this, cause it's a lot. I mean, it really is a lot. I mean, I sit here and I go through all these numbers and look at everything from before and after, and, you know, I know that you're being as honest and transparent as you can possibly be, so we're all here for the right reasons. So if you figured out what SOP is for budget and finance, you know, we're here to support that and we'll land on it at some point. But don't beat yourself up.
Well, Madam Mayor, I appreciate the patience. One of the things that took a lot of time as we were building this, even into last week, some of the budgeting practices that we switched to with this budget, for example, doing carry-in funds from the previous year, and how you show it as carry-out. We reorganized a bunch of areas throughout all of the budgets, changed accounting codes around. And so trying to work through all that over this, really getting into the first quarter of execution. And I want to thank Tiffany. She put in a whole lot of time with a whole lot of short notice of all these eaches, trying to get things as cleaned up for the draft that we got y'all last Friday as we could. And there's still a few things that we're still trying to button up, but it's part of the confusion.
Yes.
So what Tiffany's gonna bring up, and I'm gonna cover, I sent this out yesterday morning, and it's an update to the Sunday morning summary I'm just gonna read it, that way it's in the record. And I think it's helpful because you can lose yourself trying to read through all the budget documents.
Yeah.
And so what I did my best was to spend some time in trying to summarize what all this information really means. So the budget summary is, overall for FY 25-26, the city is in good fiscal shape. We've received 41% of our annual projected revenues. So that is 635,000 of the 1.56 million of projected revenues has already come in, and we are early in the second quarter. We are tracking well with our budgeted expenses, coming in right at expected levels, which are about 28%. If you look at for a little over the first quarter, that would be a little over. You'd expect to have about 25% of your expenses executed. And so that is, we're coming in right around 452,000 of our budgeted $1.6 million in expenses. We have completed 8 of 26 pay periods for this payroll budget, so that's about 31% for payroll. If you just look at the timing of our pay cycles, the pay periods, it's a little higher execution than what you'd think. It's 31% rather than 25%. And we're about 3.5 months out of 12, or 29% of expenses to be for expenses or income expected. Therefore, we focused on budget lines that were outside of 20 to 35% execution as an area of focusing on as we reviewed the detailed documents. Our detailed analysis identified three major areas of unbudgeted increases totaling about $142,000. That can be offset by about $112,000 in unbudgeted income or unrealized expenses. This results in roughly a $30,000 additional expense to the budget, which is about 2%. And any upcoming budgeted amendments that you all should direct, which will obviously need to correct the budget eventually. Right now, we're looking at that budget coming in at about $30,000 more than what we budgeted back in August. Well, y'all approved in September. Moving down to a little more of the details on some of those numbers. We found several areas that need to be updated in our future amended budget. So if you look at the unbudgeted or unbudgeted annualized costs, that totaled that $142,000. $59,000 is increased insurance costs. $44,000 is unbudgeted Florida retirement system costs, and $39,000 is unbudgeted payroll costs for the city hall staff, not Public Works. Public Works actually came in under, and I'll explain that in a minute. And when I talked about the offsetting $112,000 of unbudgeted revenues or unrealized expenses, that is roughly $30,000 that we're expecting from the grants that we received, either to offset costs for our contract planner or city staff labor. And I think that's a pretty conservative estimate of how much that's going to come in at. $20,000 in an FTOT streetlights reimbursement that our staff found in coordination with FTOT from a couple of fiscal years ago. And so they cut us a roughly $20,000 check that you'll see in the budget lines of income. And then the $19,400 that we received in the refund from Waste Management on the charges that shouldn't have been coming in over the previous fiscal years. $13,200 in our property liability insurance savings, moving from FMIT to PGIT, and another $12,300 in workman's comp savings from that same transition. $12,500 in offset waste management expenses this fiscal year, since it was budgeted, but we're not going to pay those expenses, and about $5,000 unbudgeted or unspent on Centennial Celebration expenses. And now I'm going to go into those cost increase areas in a little more detail. As I said, the health insurance costs have increased. Since 2008, the city has provided health insurance for our full-time employees who would like that coverage. We've had the same level of coverage or package since about 2015. Our cost used to be around $5,300 per month, which had the previous budget year at $63,000. And however, covered employees increased from 4 in fiscal year 24-25 to 9 in fiscal year 25-26, more than doubling the cost to about $12,500 a month, or for this fiscal year, $122,000 for this fiscal year total cost towards health insurance. Next fiscal year, it'll be $151,000 when we build next year's budget. This is a $59,000 unfunded expense. This was not caught in the initial budget build, as the additional covered employees all qualified or identified the change at the beginning of the fiscal year, effectively after we built the budget and built it out. To prevent this from occurring in the future, we're going to budget healthcare coverage for all full-time positions. And we estimate that cost at about $1,500 per month, or about $18,000 for a full-time employee. That's using just an average cost for our employee. If you look at, and I learned this after we built the budget, we get in October, the insurance company reaches out to us with their new premiums. Those premiums are built out by age, so anyone from 20 years old up to 70 dictates what the premium is going to be for that particular employee. We had some employees that had been with us for a while that maybe their spouse lost their insurance and they decided to actually pick up and use the city insurance, which they hadn't been, or we've just had new employees that had been with us but didn't go into the qualification. They hadn't been with us long enough until this October cycle, and that's where some of the additional numbers picked up. I'll pause on that issue to see if y'all have any questions on that one.
Is there a copay or a partial payment that the employees must be paying for their health insurance?
I don't believe so.
You know, most companies do that, right? The most companies have the employees pay a partial amount.
So you mean like as say the company provides, say, a % of it and the employee pays the rest of it?
Yeah,
It's almost
and-
like a copay. Well, I call it, when I think copay, I think when you go to the doctor's office,
Yeah.
maybe $15.
Yeah.
But I think what you're referring to is usually, I know that, we had, I had so much, I had to pay that, I had to pick up the other 40% or whatever they
Yeah.
paid.
Right.
So-
Is that what you're trying to ask?
Yes, that.
Okay.
Yeah, so yes,
Yeah,
our
so
employees do
what
have
do-
copays.
yeah.
They do have the expense when they go to the hospital.
So
that they have to
Well, okay,
offset.
that's not what I meant.
Yes.
I meant what you said.
Okay.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to call it, so I just used the word copay. But
Yeah.
every month at the school district, if you took the school district health insurance plan, they paid for like 75% and employees had to pay 25%.
Right.
And so that is the far more normal way that businesses do things, even government entities. And so what I would ask is that, along with your review of paid holidays
Yes, sir.
and benefits, I would like us to get more in line with the normal. And it seems like we have migrated to the abnormal over the decades. We now give 50% more holidays paid than any other entity, at least than the state. When I reviewed our vacation, if you've got like 20 years with the city, you get like 3 months paid vacation. It was outrageous how much paid vacation our employees get once they get much more senior. And now we're saying we're paying 100% of all medical.
Have been since 2008, to be clear.
So what you're.
I'm just
okay,
saying,
Yeah,
we're
yes.
out of line with what is normal. And so when you do your benefits review, please look at all these things and try to bring us back into more in line with what is industry standard, what is government standard.
So, on back to the healthcare, so when each person gets a check and their healthcare, let's say it's $350 a month average, and they pay, it comes out of their check, a % of that $350, and the city pays 8% to make it whole, correct? So we're not paying 100% for their healthcare, right?
Cool.
No, you
No.
are.
We are.
Of the
We
premium.
are, yes,
The
of
health,
the premium.
100% of the
Yes.
healthcare premium.
Yes, we are.
Separate from co-pays and some of those other.
Because co-pays are at the doctor's office.
Right,
So,
that's not.
Right.
so what you're saying is we pay 100% of their healthcare, they don't pay a dime into it.
Correct.
Correct.
I'll just restate it the way I think is, we pay 100% of the healthcare premium.
Okay,
And
so
then
let's say it's
there are other
$300 a
healthcare costs
month,
if you include
we
it.
cover that $300 a month per employee,
Right.
they don't pay any part of that as
It's-
a shared cost.
It's
$1,500 a month
Okay.
per person.
I understand what
We
you're saying
don't
now.
pay anything.
Okay, that is a bit unusual.
Yes.
I mean, in my 52 years, I don't think I've heard of that, and I work for all kinds of entities.
It's not normal.
So it's probably, just something to look at, and that's just something you're gonna do, is look at the package for your staff, and what is the best package for our staff for making them continue to wanna stay here and work here and be invested in what we give back to them. So, that is very important to me.
Additionally, I have, for years said that if an employee opts to not take, our insurance, that saves the city $1,500 a month. I think we should share that with the employee. In other words, if the city doesn't have to pay $1,500 a month or whatever our portion will be in the future, give $500, $700 back to the employee. And we enjoy the other rest of the savings.
Right.
This gives an employee incentive, especially in Colonel Booth's situation, where he has an alternate source for insurance, for him to say, city, please don't pay the $1,500 for me, and he gets a benefit out of that.
To be clear, y'all aren't paying for my insurance. That was in the contract.
I think you should be reimbursed for that. If you're saving us money, let's give you some credit for that.
We do have another,
You know?
at least one other employee, full-time employee that the spouse provides, that they use the spouse's
Right.
funds.
And just to go back a little bit, back in 2024, I know Tony was sitting here with me on this, and we took a look, because we only had the time, I think we had, well, besides Public Works, we had 2 employees in this building, and that was in the spring of '24, I believe. And so Charlie went and looked at what his needs were, and I said, I want, because the comments I heard about people leaving was they weren't paying enough money, or they were all part-time. So now we've gone totally, we have full-time staff, which I think is great. And, you know, my biggest thing was, we hire the right people, and we pay them the money that the market yields. Like, what is the cost? I'm not looking at a $15 an hour type thing unless you got a student or something like that. I want to hire the right professionals, and that we embrace them in their roles, and everything from the benefits to the job experience. And so that's what we did, and we looked at that, and I was given with how much money was already currently being spent at the time, and really the mark to look at is it's a 60-40 ratio. So it's 40% is your staffing, if I'm not mistaken, and it was 40% operations, 60% staff. On your $1.5 million a year general fund, 60% around that number was supposed to go to staffing. Well, guess what? We were barely at 40%, maybe 38%. And I've got all the data, all the spreadsheets. I met with all these different people to review it, make sure it was correct, and looked at all the benefits. At the time, we weren't getting any kind of retirement for our staff. They were not signed up for it. So we went and looked at all of that, and the cost associated per role and per staff member, and showing what that number was. And then we agreed on, it was another $223,000 that we added to the budget for just staffing along in 2024. So, to me, I think that's the best investment we can make is our people, and we want to make sure that we continue to do that. So I think in your case, just look at what the bucket of money is and how you best feel like is the best package and what you think is fair, and meet with them and see what they want.
Yes, ma'am.
That's how I would do it.
And I'll just say, in my experience, if people have money, if they have something to lose, something that they have to pay in, they are far more bought into the system. It's simple things like, if they have to pay to go to a dinner, guess what? They're gonna go. But if they didn't have to pay, they probably will go. All right. When people don't pay anything, they don't carry the same
We're
weight.
just about skin in the game.
Yeah, exactly. Skin in the game. When they have skin in the game, even if it's 10% or whatever, they pay attention. They are interested in reducing costs. They are interested in success. But if they have no skin in the game, it doesn't matter whether they go or not, because they paid nothing. They take it different. Now, not everybody, but in general, overall, yes.
The only other comment I'll have, I did reach out, I talked to Rich about, offsetting employees who choose not to use the, he said there was some legal issue with that, and I gotta go back and revisit the specifics on that. I'm with you, I think that makes sense. But I just gotta remember what Rich had said, there was a legal issue with that. So.
Okay, well, there's another way we can handle it then. We can give people more pay, but charge them more for the insurance. And therefore, in essence, their extra pay pays for the insurance. But if they choose not to have the insurance, they get to keep the extra pay. So there's a legal way around that. And then the people have the choice, the employees have the choice. So if we can't share the benefits, then let's look at a legal way
Right.
to do the same thing. In other words, compensate those more who choose not to have insurance with the city.
Sounds like a good option.
It's just
Why we have these
fair.
discussions.
It's just fair.
All right, if there's not anything else, I'm gonna wake my computer up and we will talk Florida retirement system. All right, so the 44,000 in unbudgeted Florida retirement system costs, with new employees, we're running about $6,000 per month, without the city manager. So when you look at going into this fiscal year, about $6,000. When y'all hired me on, I'll clarify, it's not written down, it was without well, as an interim city manager, it was without benefits at $8,000 a month. So we were also required to back pay $10,000 for my interim city manager time by Florida Retirement System, because as we found out by the way that the city signed on to FRS, any employee of the city has to be enrolled in Florida Retirement System. And so I didn't actually enroll in Florida Retirement System until I was hired on as the permanent. But as part of the permanent, FRS said, thank you, welcome to the system. Hey city, pay us back since July, since Jamie Booth was a employee of the city. That came to the tune of a $20,000 cost that was unbudgeted. And so, let me see where I am on my list here. New estimate for moving forward will likely be somewhere between $9,000 and $10,000 per month. And we will do a detailed review to make the final recommendation budget amendment after Tiffany and I go through it all. Tiffany and I were just talking about a rough estimate of what we think it is, but I have not had a chance to dig into the data on this by employee to confirm or deny exactly what that number is going to be. No pause for questions.
Well, the whole FRS program to me is a huge benefit. I mean, there's a lot of jobs you go into and they don't offer retirement or even 401k.
So we used to have a 403B matching. That's what. So we had a retirement system. We just decided under Charlie Van Zandt to go to FRS.
I don't think everybody was on that system.
Only full-time employees.
Okay, yeah, and we didn't have really.
We
It was
only had
only
like
Kenny
4.
Hall and Matt Cole.
What's
It
that?
was only Kenny Hall and Matt Cole.
Well, there was only 2 people.
Two people didn't opt in, but it was almost a year ago when the city shifted over, I think.
Yeah.
Because we went through the conversion last year,
But I
the city
think
council
that-
authorized the payback of a
Yeah,
full
we had to pay a
year.
bunch of money to buy in.
But I think that the FRS program is really quite good, from what I understand.
So
Even
I'm on
compared
it.
to even compared to 401k.
I'm on it right now, and it's kind of crappy. But I was only in it for 10 years, so I.
But you were in, you got military though. Yeah.
No, but I'm saying if FRS were my retirement system and that was it,
Yeah, it would.
I get $500 a month.
Oh, okay.
That's it. So be careful about. You have to be in it a long time and make a lot of money to
Well,
get a good retirement.
So another
Years
way to
of
look
benefits.
at it, in here is, okay, so you look at the top jobs in our, always look at who could be our targets to work here, right? So we don't have a lot as far as big business here that could offer a 401k matching.
Yeah.
You have the schools, you got teachers in the government roles, get, retirement. And then most people that would be
Like
nurses or
electric.
something who go work at Shands and they have
Right.
maybe a big type of retirement. But I'm just saying your average employer here probably doesn't offer retirement benefits, is gonna be my guess. Because
Clay
most of the small
Electric.
business, huh?
Clay Electric.
Yeah, Clay Electric, that'd be another one. So we only have, it's not like Jacksonville where there's a lot
Right.
of companies. But here we only have a handful. So to me, for the city government to offer retirement benefits for our staff, who, many of them live here local and all that, I mean, it's a huge attraction for recruiting staff. Who, not just recruiting staff, but recruiting staff who wanna stay here and continue to work here.
Well, and retention too.
And that's what I mean, like the retention thing, right? So, I do think though, I mean, because we did have a lot of part-time employees before, and that's why there was only 2 people maybe being paid the retirement benefits. So,
But since I'm in the FRS system, there are 2 options. One is the pension.
yeah,
The other one is like a 401k.
Wow.
So employees can do that
They can pick
also
one
if
or
they
the other.
choose, they can pick one or the other, but they can only change one time in their entire career.
Okay.
So whatever they start with, they either gonna stay with, or one time they can switch to the other one.
Do you know if the staff's been presented those options? Like to
So-
be educated on what their offerings might be at that level?
Well, there's so many emails that go out that tell you about the conferences that are coming up, and then we get a lot of information via mail.
Okay.
So it's kind of up to them to navigate what they wanna do.
Okay.
So once they are on board with the city,
Mhm.
then FRS is communicating directly with the
Yeah.
employee.
Okay.
I'm still waiting for my communication, but,
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
I've
This is a
communicated them as
special-
part of the sign-in.
Yeah,
but,
this is a special one.
Yeah.
You know, like I get information all the time, and I knew exactly what you just said, so, I mean, they're aware of it, what they do with that information, I'm not sure. No
Mhm.
one's really came to me and asked me, but, that's really.
And I think there's only really two important points, you need to know that. One is when you first come on board, because you need to make a decision. At that point in time, you need to know the pros and cons
Right.
of both options. And then when you get ready to retire, you have to decide before you retire if you're going to switch to the other option. You can't wait till like with a month of retirement or so, there's some timeline, I forget what it
Yeah.
is. And you certainly can't do it after you retire, or after you, and right now, actually, I am not receiving any money because I have elected to wait a little bit before I retire.
Mhm.
I'm gonna do it here next month or two or whatever, but I cannot change because I'm no longer employed by an FRS
Right.
entity.
Mhm.
And so I'm stuck where I'm at, that's
Yeah.
what it is. And they all need to know that
Mhm.
at those two important times. Because otherwise they're stuck, they can't make any changes, they can't do what they want.
You know, and really, the younger they are when they get into programs like that. I mean, fortunately for me, I have a 401k and a pension from Abbott. And ever since I was about 40 years old or something. So, but I had to make some decisions also kind of right before I retired, but they were gonna be big decisions, you know,
Yeah.
like where this is gonna go, which way it's gonna go. So I think it's just a benefit to staff to make sure they got the right tools and understand what their options are, so they can make the best decisions for themselves and their families. Because it can be really frustrating not trying to understand or navigate the way the system works, you know, it's confusing.
Yeah, well, it really have to, like if they're young
Yeah.
and they think that the city is not their entire career, it's probably better to do the 401k option.
Yeah.
Because
with a
that's
match.
far more portable.
Yeah.
Whereas
Just switch it
the
over.
pension, that's far, far less, they have to go to another FRS entity.
Mhm.
So that's far more limiting. So, but somebody's gotta tell them that because, and I don't know, we're not hiring very many people, so it's not like we can contract that out, you know,
Right.
all that.
I didn't know if the state provides someone that could come in and educate, you know.
I can look into it.
Okay.
All right, and then moving on to the last major area of under budget or unfunded, $39,000 unbudgeted for payroll costs, and that's in the city hall staff. Three factors contributed to over execution in the city hall payroll. Number one, an employee moved from city hall to public works, but we kept charging against city hall instead of public works when we were paying. So obviously we've got that, we're gonna get that corrected. But that's about $13,000 of over expenditure in the, in this first quarter's performance. Second one, a salaried employee's pay was over-calculated, resulting in roughly $2,000 in overpayments during this first quarter of the fiscal year. That overpayment will be recouped in the next 2 pay cycles to correct the issue. So we've got that one, and that'll actually result in reduced expenditures, but also effectively $2,000 back into, it comes in a weird way, it's just $2,000 we won't expend, so that'll get itself corrected. And then the last one was, I failed to budget overtime into the labor cost estimates when I built the budget. And so no overtime was factored into the payroll budget for the fiscal year. This will be corrected by adding a total of $24,000 to the budget to account for overtime work over the entire year. not just this quarter, but if you look at it annualized, that's the impact of it. So I'll pause there for questions and discussion.
So I don't ever recall in the past having overtime. We've always used comp time. And so if you plan to use overtime, which I would discourage, but you're the city manager, and you know, if that's what you wanna do, then the second thing I would say is, gotta put a limit on it. This thing can go through the roof. And, it's gotta be in your personnel policy, and you gotta say, if you put in more than X amount of time, you don't get overtime for it. And I would highly recommend that you start with comp time. And, if comp time is insufficient to cover all of the extra time that our people are working, then, and you wanna use overtime, okay, I'll support it. But again, comp time first, and if you're gonna do overtime at all, put a cap on it. Just cannot be more than this, period, end of story.
Yes, sir.
That's what I would do.
So, and it's just a HR clarification, as far as I know, I thought salaried employees were the only ones eligible for comp time. Hourly employees are eligible for overtime. I thought that was HR.
Both are eligible for comp time. I'll double check it in our policy, the
Okay.
existing policy,
Okay.
but both can do it.
Okay,
I know I've read that in there, and what you're talking about, Councilman Lewandowski, is clearly in there. I've been discussing with the staff, we've got controls in place to, just like you said, go to comp time first. Overtime is at my authorization authority. And so we've got controls in place now
Okay.
to make sure that we're doing it right.
yeah,
Now, I do want to state, there are certain times particularly that make sense for overtime that we'll watch. There are just times where we need the staff in working a 40-hour week during regular duty hours, and we do a lot of weekend work, or evening work. Now, to be clear, my guidance is, hey, if we stay a couple hours late, either we leave and take a couple hours in the afternoon before we come back in for a city council meeting, or if one runs late, we'll come in a couple hours later that next day. But there are times, if you look at execution in the middle of the summer, Public Works is fully engaged, mowing all the grass that's growing 24/7 darn near, and then we have a 4th of July event. There's gonna be times where we may have to, I apologize for not muting my phone. There's gonna be times where we're gonna, but it's gonna be through a discussion that we can't mitigate it with comp time first.
Okay.
And I'll work with the team.
yeah, and I agree with the whole cabinet, as best we can. I just didn't know, that hourly would, be eligible for comp time based on the structure of HR's, guys.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, now just go into the, I think we'll pause there on the general fund. Councilman Lewandowski, I know you like sometimes to go line by line. Before I shift off to the other funds, were there any questions? Do you want to do line by line? Do you want to ask questions?
So, all right, you probably already know all this, and I apologize if I'm repeating. But, I have an MBA. You may not know I've run 2 of my own businesses. When I was in the Air Force, I was a program element monitor, a PEM, and I ran a $500 million budget. And for 3 years, all I did was numbers. $500 million worth of numbers. So I'm really comfortable looking at numbers. I don't have any problem with details and data and that kind of thing. And from all of my experience, I also have preferences. And part of my preference is from what has happened previously when I was in city council. And so perhaps when Tiffany comes back here, or maybe this I can just share with you, Colonel Booth.
I've got it.
But the format for this income and expenses sheet, because when I do budgetary stuff, I look for both an IE, an income and expenses sheet, and a balance sheet. I didn't see any balance sheet at all with any of the financial stuff. And so that's something separate that we can talk about.
Okay.
But for the income expenses sheet, I really feel like I need 3 columns, not 2. And the logic is that in this income and expenses sheet, not everything is linear. Not everything is equal by month. Sometimes we get big chunks of money either spent or coming in on a particular month. And other expenses or income are steady throughout the year.
Mhm.
Every month there's a set amount. And so if I want to look at what our budget is and what we've received, I need to compare to what we expected at this point in time.
Right.
And if we have not expected a big chunk of money, then the zero that I see in income should not be fearful. I should not worry about it because we're not supposed to get the money yet. But I have to know that we're not supposed to get the money yet. And the annual budget doesn't tell me that. So I need a third column to tell me what should we have or what did we plan to have at this point in time. So that is what I would like to
Similar to the
ask.
forecast, in a way,
Um,
like the forecast number.
Okay, so let me, yes and no. So
Expected execution.
So
Year-to-date forecast.
so if I were to take the 12 months, yeah, those are the 12 months.
Right.
And in each month, I would say, okay, half-cent sales tax, let's say for the year, I'm just gonna make it a nice round number, let's say it's 12. Okay, well, I would expect 2 in October, 2 in November, 2 in December, 2 in January, 2 every single month. That's basically a linear. And so when we do the first 3 months, I should have 6. That's what I would expect in the third column. I would have 12 for the budget. I would have, 2 per year, 24 for the budget, 6 in the first 3 months, and then I look at what do we have. So 3 columns. Whereas if it were property taxes, perhaps we expect property taxes to be 0, 0, 0, and then 1 month, 90%. Because of the way property taxes come down from the county or wherever they come from. All right? And so I would expect 0 and 0 and this to be, 360,000. But if I don't know what to expect at that point in time because of the financial timeline, then these numbers are all meaningless to me. Because I have nothing to, I can't compare them to the budget because that's the full year. I need to compare them to this point in time and what we should have at this point in time. Related to that, the left-hand column are October 25 to January 26th. Okay, accounting-wise, I would do that differently, and here's why. The month of January is not done, so you can't include all of January because all of January is not done yet. And so I would not go from October to January at the January meeting.
Yes, sir.
I would go October through December and make it 3 complete months. Because this January, if you put a number here, that will be incorrect. Because January's not done yet.
Right.
So you have to redo all the numbers all over again to get the October to January numbers. And so don't do that work twice. Just do October to December. Those are 3 complete months. We're in the January meeting. We can use that. That's fine. And actually, that's much better than October to January, which in my mind means nothing again. It's not a done month. So I would ask, rather than go through everything line by line by line, because I don't know what we're supposed to have. Is that 305,000 in property taxes out of 360,000? Is that good or bad? Well, I don't know, because I don't know what we're supposed to have here after the first 3 months. And so what I would say is, let's not go through it line by line till we get this in a more usable format, 3 columns. And next month, when we have the February meeting, do October through January. I'm good with that then.
Yeah, because it's 3 months.
Right, it'll actually be 4 months then, but we'll be in February, so we can have, And by doing it the third week, that gives Tiffany a couple weeks to put all the numbers together to make sure everything from January is included. And so we have, we have good data in this column, solid 4 months, October through January. And if it's month to month to month, it should be about 1/3 of the total. But if it's something else, then we need to know that.
Yep, Councilman, just to address kind of both of your comments at once, QuickBooks did spit that third column out. It didn't make a darn bit of sense when I did my rough numbers, so I told her drop it, because it was gonna create more questions than answers. And so we did drop it, but it has that capability, number one.
Okay, good.
In my analysis, you heard me talk all the percentages. I manually went through this weekend and calculated where, 25 to 30%, and looked at it all. That's where I was able to call out some of those areas where we were seeing differences. And then, so we do have the capability to do that expectation. What I've got to get into QuickBooks is understand what it was calculating. Even if you looked at it linearly, the number didn't make sense. And so I got to go and understand what it was trying to say. We did initially talk about, and so on your second issue of just doing the full month, we did initially talk about just giving information through December. We started there. We made so many changes in the last week based on the issues that we found as we scrubbed it all. Those issues and those changes weren't going to show. So all the effort we put in to kind of clean things up and understand our numbers didn't show if you printed it out just through December. A lot of that cleaning occurred when we made the change, so it showed up in that first 2 weeks of January. And so another reason why we did that partial period of January to show all the full numbers up until that point. But I agree, in the future as we do this, we run the numbers and the numbers are what they are at the end of the month, and we work through and talk through. But we would have spent hours trying to explain why the numbers were where they were if we hadn't added. If you wanted to go line by line, if we'd have just cut it off in December, this budget wouldn't have made a whole lot of sense. Or performance would not have made a whole lot of sense. So acknowledge both asks, and I don't see any problem with that in the future.
I'm going to declare victory. Just by having this meeting, forcing you to go through that whole process and find all those things and updates and all that, that's huge. That's just really important.
It is.
But I don't think the value added of going through line by line right now at this time
Yeah.
is worth it.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm used to looking at it from a different angle. For example, we would look at sales analysis for specifics. I look at all of these line items as a sales analysis mindset, like it's an item, right? And then we would track monthly, like here's the goal, this is what we're shooting for, like this 1.5 million is our total goal of the whole list of the general fund. Each one of these line items has a number attached to it. And so each month we would see how close we are getting to that number to reach our goal at the end of the year. And where's the hole at? Like, oh, that money's coming in here. We know it's coming in here, but it hasn't come in yet. So it kind of really takes you even a further deeper level, just looking at even on a monthly basis. But I'm surely we can do it on a quarterly too with the way we're set up here. I mean, like I looked at the whole thing with when you pointed out that on the general fund that we were at 41% has been received already, $630,000 when we were forecasted for $390, based on where we are right now in the budget. So it tells me that I'm expecting to see $130,000 a month coming in to feed that 1.5, to get to that 1.5 million number. So when I would look at it for a whole year, month by month, I'm looking at it, where's my 130? Oh, I got 260 here, so I'm not worried about February being zero. You follow me?
Yes, ma'am.
So it really helps you see the holes, like what Dan's talking about, I think. And are you talking about the summary sheet that had before, would say, it's got like 4 buckets on that one sheet, and it shows what the general fund is. I have copies of it at home, but it's like it just has 4 or 5 buckets. It shows general fund, shows yes, it's right here. Yeah, like the CDs, that sheet right there.
We have that.
Yeah, so this is a nice for us and in my mind, because I would go to this sheet all the time, because looking at all these together, it's like, because you could go one thing across the other, but like you're trying to explain it on all this detail, right? So it makes it difficult to follow to me. But this is how they've been doing it since I've been doing this. It's like
Yeah, so that's the income and expenses, this is more of a balance sheet.
Correct, that's,
So it's
this
a
is
different-
20,000 foot. Yeah.
Right, and this is a snapshot in time.
Right,
On this one particular day, as of September 15th, that's what it looks like.
right,
This is for a period of time,
right.
so that's how
Like
they're
3
different.
months or whatever.
Whatever, yeah, a year, whatever it
Three
is.
solid months, yeah.
Right.
And that'll help us easier, I mean, I understand what you're doing, I understand completely what you're saying. Yeah, we're just trying to make sure that we can help you guys too, in identifying things and figuring out how we can go about things.
Yeah, and we want to be able to take back to the full council recommendations to amend the current budget, and of course, prepare for the next fiscal year for a new budget, and give them a new budget. So what you're learning, like about pay and about healthcare and all that kind of stuff, we can have a much better prediction for next year's budget. We're never gonna be perfect, and things are gonna change,
Yeah.
and we're gonna have to amend our budget. Let's just try to be as smart about it as possible.
Everybody goes through this,
Oh, yeah.
every city goes through this. Yeah.
I think the people who believe that their budget is infallible are the unrealistic people.
Yeah.
That things are going to change.
And we're in great shape, you know?
Oh, we're so blessed that way.
Yeah.
We are so blessed. But what I think that we need to do better on, and this goes, I've said this before, and I'm sorry that I'm repeating myself, is I want a list of assets that
Yes,
are
sir.
$5,000 or more, buildings, vehicles, anything else. I want to know what year it was acquired and what is its expected lifespan. Because we need to start looking long-term, I'm talking 10, 15, 20 years. When do we need to replace things? When do we need a new truck? When do we need a new city hall? When do we need a new pavilion? Or if not new, when do we have to renovate it, update it, those kinds of things? Because if we wait until this place starts to fall apart and we haven't saved any money for it, we're gonna be up a creek without a paddle. And we can't plan that way. We need to be smarter than that.
Well, and I think one of the things that are a little different, is that we're both of the mindset, if we need to fix it, we need to remove it, replace it, or the mindset, yes, we're gonna do that. We had a copy machine a couple of years ago that kept having all these problems. It was costing us thousands of dollars to fix it. And this thing was over 10 years old. It definitely outlived its life, but they kept putting a Band-Aid on it. And I'm like, get rid of it and buy another one, you know? But we didn't have that kind of mindset going on there. It's like, no, we don't wanna spend the money. We don't wanna spend the money on full-time employees, that kind of thing. We're not of that mindset. I mean, we wanna be responsible, but to me, you keep throwing money at something, just like you did the transition with the septic to sewer at the beach. It made more sense because the clean out was getting so common, you know, whereas a couple of years ago, we didn't have a problem because nobody used the pavilion. So, you know, these are wise decisions, and like Dan said, if we have the list of all of our assets, and we know the life of them, and we know, okay, this year, 2026, we need to buy a truck, we need to buy a mower, and it's gonna cost X, but we've already planned for that because we knew it was coming, right? And then the next year you have other assets that you have to look at either getting rid of or adding. So, it's just a plan, that's all it is, and, it can be massaged at any time, but, you know, cause you look at a long-term, situation, and you start looking at cost for repairs, to insure certain items, all those things add up, and it makes more sense. So like trading your car in and get a new car, because it's probably cheaper to get a new car than keep fixing the old car. Or the insurance on it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's kind of in that kind of idea, and I 100% agree with that.
Madam Mayor, just kind of sidebar on one of the items y'all were talking about, which was the income. I think it was a total of 41%.
Yes, you said
If you look at the driver on why it's so high,
Mhm.
we did very, very well on the first quarter with property taxes coming in.
Okay.
Is from my numbers, it typically happens, but last year, I think just in the first quarter, we've got more of our property taxes in
Mhm.
than we did the entire year last year. We underperformed almost pretty significantly. I forget what the number was.
Mhm.
So it surged up, and hopefully it slows, it will slow down.
It will.
Hopefully it continues to trend, at least to get us to the budget.
Right.
It didn't last year.
Yeah.
We'll see what it does this year.
DRA funds coming in.
So,
Yeah.
so just
Well-
as an example, we got 85% of our budgeted property taxes in.
Right, and our budget is 95%
Correct.
of what we're supposed to get.
Yes, sir.
So we can exceed that number possibly. Yeah. But again, if we don't know what we should get, you know, if the historical average has been 80%, I need that third column to show 80%, and then our actual is 85%, and we can go, woo-hoo, we're ahead of schedule. But without that third column, I don't know.
We'll look into what QuickBooks Desktop is capable of doing. My gut guess is that it's gonna only do linear if it does anything. And we still gotta figure out how it's calculated linear, because it didn't look linear to me. But I agree, we'll get it cleaned up for the next one.
Yes, so sadly, technology can be your enemy. And in this case, QuickBooks. And it may not be able to present things the way that we would like to. And I'll give an example here. On page 5 of 8, which is the second page of the income and expense statement, near the top, the third line says total income, and then the fourth line says gross profit. Okay, from my MBA program, from me teaching, profit means income minus expenses. That's the definition of profit. Well, QuickBooks doesn't do it right. That is
That's
wrong.
scary.
That is not profit. That's gross income, not gross profit. So I don't know if you have any ability to go in and change the title in QuickBooks, but that is just dead wrong. No. Gross income, yes. So let's use the appropriate accounting terms if the software will let us do it.
Thank you for that last qualifier.
Yeah.
I tell this to Tiffany all the time, I'm like, if it'll let you do it.
Right. No, sometimes technology can be our enemy instead of our help.
Yeah.
And I just don't want somebody from outside looking at that and go, these people are idiots. They have no idea what the word profit means. Yes, we know what it means. Let's show it.
All right. Wait, my computer, unless there's any other comments on general fund, we'll move on, but I gotta get my notes back up. Okay. And we'll be much more succinct on these other funds. So I'll go to the infrastructure fund next. So no significant concerns in the infrastructure fund from my perspective. Income is a little low at about 58,000 of the 314,000 budgeted. So it came in around 19% of what we had budgeted. We would have expected around 25. Our only significant expenditures are city staff reimbursements, cargo way ditch blocks project, and construction. So that cargo way ditch blocks construction was around $7,150, and the Nightingale culvert design. So that's design fees to our engineering firm, Infrastructure Consulting and Engineering, of $12,800. And city staff reimbursement is new. You're probably likely not used to seeing those funds come out, but what we are doing is using some findings from previous audits to make sure that we are reimbursing the general fund from all the subordinate funds for city manager oversight, attorney fees for answering questions about the cemetery, and Tiffany doing budgeting work. And so we had not been doing that in the past. All three of our subordinate funds are now doing city staff reimbursements to the general fund. That's a new line item that you'll see income in the general fund now coming out of those to offset just the general labor expenses of the city staff. Sorry, and then we do need to do some corrections in here. Some of the budget lines to match what we discussed at the end of the budget meeting back in September. There were, as an example, Councilman Dusty, I think we publicly discussed establishing if I remember correctly, the number was about $40,000 or $50,000 for kind of a, not necessarily unbudgeted, but just general engineering work or projects that we didn't see now that we may need to do over the year. We did some changes to the numbers out of some of the other budget lines to make room for that $50,000 that I recall. We didn't get that caught up. I noticed that this weekend, so we'll get that fixed. So all the lines are there with the, I don't know if you call it miscellaneous construction or unplanned construction expenses or design expenses.
Mark it down in your book.
Oh, I've already sent an email to Tiffany. She got an email with like
Oh, the
20 more
email.
things
Scary.
to work on.
You have some good job security tips.
Yeah. I looked at it this morning and I was like, oh, keep going. I don't have time for that right now.
Yeah, poor Tiffany walked in, I think it was Thursday morning with
Oh, my goodness.
with all of these documents, with my handwriting's horrible.
You should have been doctor.
But about 20 items on each one of them. Said, you might get this done today.
Today.
Talk about employee
Today.
retention, that wasn't my best move, but she did a great job cleaning it up.
I may have cried.
You may have cried, okay.
Unless there's questions on the infrastructure fund, we can move on to the community redevelopment trust fund.
I will say for my part, when we have our list of assets, I think that will help provide guidance to where we should spend on our infrastructure.
Right.
The Nightingale culvert is actually, it's already in work, but that's gotta be a high priority. Okay, so what's next?
Right.
And that's where it's gonna come out of infrastructure for the most part, not everything.
Mhm.
So I'll be looking forward to our asset list to help guide us. with
Yes, sir.
infrastructure.
Well, it ties into the capital improvement plan, it all ties together. I have not forgotten about these discussions back, I think the last time we had this meeting in July.
I know you're busy, man.
We will get that. Okay, so community redevelopment trust fund. So income currently is 0 this year, which is not uncommon. We typically receive the county, so we get two types of increments into the community redevelopment trust fund. And so a county increment, which comes from the county basically agreeing a couple of decades ago, the ad valorem property taxes that they would get inside of the community redevelopment area would come to the city. And so that county increment comes in a single check, usually in February, somewhere to the tune of $111,000. And so once again, an example of, we're not expecting it until February. So you
That's the
shouldn't see it.
third column, yes. So we're
Correct.
expecting a 0 there, and there's a 0 there, and everything's good.
Right.
That's what we're expecting. That's why I need that third column.
Yes, sir. The other increment is the city increment. So that is the city property taxes on property within the community redevelopment area. This is the one we're gonna check on. They come in, I think Tiffany's word, I'm gonna use the word sporadically. We never know when we're gonna get them. It's not a monthly payment. Sometimes we can get 3 payments in 1 month. Clearly, we haven't received any so far this quarter. But we're gonna reach out and talk with the county just to understand where we are and what's transpiring with that increment. Especially because of how much we received already in the city regular ad valorem proceeds. So we're gonna look into that, just make sure everything is correct. And we're accounting for everything
It's always
broken
been
properly.
down in two, and all of them have just been straight property tax, no CRA funds, so.
Okay, so it might be they should have differentiated.
That or the property taxes come first and then the CRA come next, cause we're already met our budget for the property
Okay.
tax.
Right, the other thing to look at is if the county or nobody's helping you, go back for historical data.
Mm-hmm.
When did it come in last year? And just use that percentage.
So what we're spending.
Right, what we're expecting, use historical data, because that's the only other thing we have to go off of.
Correct.
Okay, and let's see. The city increment comes sporadically. Okay, so our only significant expenditures are city staff labor reimbursements and $8,650 for the compacted millings that went on to Bean Lane behind Pangborns. That was the first of a 2-part project. We had budgeted, I want to say about $15,000 to get both of those roads kind of potholed and evened out with where the sewer line main manholes are. And so this week, we're expecting the company to come in and do the other side, which is Beasley Lane, here from behind the physical therapy building out to basically by the, I'm thinking of the Shrine, not Shriners, Mason's Mason facility there along that lane,
This
and
is
get both of those.
unpaved parts of those roads.
This is correct, and this is millings that are just compacted, so it's not complete paving, but it's much more
Very
stabilized than what we've got out there right now. If you go out there right now, there's multiple inch differences between the ground and a manhole cover, which if you've got a low riding car,
Pretty bad.
that doesn't work out very well for transmissions and oil pans, so.
No, that's important, and also water flow when we have heavy rains.
Mhm.
Because we don't wanna, we've had sandbags out there and all kinds of stuff. We need to make sure that that water flow is appropriate.
And the last one, unless there's questions on community redevelopment area or agency funds, we can move on to the cemetery fund.
I suppose all the expenses associated with the China Chef were last fiscal year?
That is correct. For the property, the demo, all, yes. There's nothing we've expended there this
Yes,
year.
there's nothing left we have to worry about.
That's correct.
Yeah, because the demo was in January last year. We purchased it in July of the year before.
Mhm.
So,
Just
yeah.
made-
should have watched
Okay,
that.
so we've had a problem in CRA with not spending money.
Yeah,
And so last year we did good,
Yeah.
because we finally spent some money.
right,
So, yay us.
yeah.
This year, I don't remember what else we have planned.
We have
So
a
I
museum.
got that real quick,
We have a
Councilman.
museum
I
plan.
should know this off the top of my head.
We have an
but-
engineering plan, I mean, what
Well,
do we have?
there's-
We actually have what, engineering design?
Working on it. But it's in the hopper to look at and see what the
I
cost
don't
would be.
remember
With the
voting
options
to
that we,
do.
well, so we did our field trip in November. We
Right.
looked at the option for the site over on Magnolia, and we also looked at parking, which would also be out of CRA, or even infrastructure. So we walked and looked at, 9 different locations of stuff that night. It was actually a really great, field trip, I learned a lot. And so the next step was reaching out to our engineers to give us some quotes on either renovating that building or tearing it down and putting a self-standing building there, like a cottage of some sort, portable building. There's some other things also being looked at.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of waiting to get some of that information back, but that's where that'll come out.
And Councilman, on that, the mayor summarized very, very well. About a month and a half of that time lost is on me, doing some investigations on a second option that's been brought up, and doing some, I'll just say broadly, some real estate evaluations on that, and that's just got hung up. We also, I want to say in November, y'all authorized a individual engineering support package that we've been bringing online over the last month. So Mr. Bell, underneath Chinmore, the Chinmore and Associates contract is coming online and helping us is going to pick up some of this workload to help carry it forward. And so the areas that we broke out for the CRA were the streetscapes and parking improvements. This is all coming from the CRA plan, Community Redevelopment Area Plan. And under streetscapes and parking improvements, we had budgeted parking design effort at $30,000 with $20,000 paving design for Beasley and Beam Lanes, and then $15,000 for the millings or base course on Beasley and Beam Lanes. That was in the streetscapes and parking. Parking just is on me. We've got to get a task order out to one of the engineer firms to start that design. We'll likely use Chinmore and Associates, but I haven't got that task order out. It's part of the discussions that I'll talk with Mr. Bell as we continue to move forward. But I would say a solid month and a half is on me, not getting task orders and getting them to give us some quotes. On the parks improvements, we did a trailhead design for $40,000 and then the tennis courts at $123,000. We will definitely get the $123 expended. We've been holding off on the tennis courts, we've been working with the United States Tennis Association, or USTA, on the possibility of getting $30,000 in grant funds on each of the 2 tennis courts to redo them. And so that would have been a potential total of $60,000 savings for the city. We are just finding out after trying to do all this work and getting to the right person in the USTA that likely we will not meet their standards as far into the contracting and procurement process as we are. That they likely will not give us any grants, so we will probably, I think we'll, within a week of making the final decision, just to give the task order to Nitty, our contractor, to go ahead and move out and just start to do the overhaul. And we'll look at other future upgrades in that area, like lighting or something, and try and come online with the USTA standards at the front end of the procurement process if we're doing any work out there. But I didn't want to lose the opportunity of saving $60,000 for the work, so we expect to get that 123 fully executed. That was parks improvement, and then economic development. So right now, in that one, all we've got is the landscaping and facade improvement grants at $20,000. And so that needs to, we just got to reestablish that program and get it running.
Okay, so what I've heard here is, and I think this is good, is that we have historically 110, 115,000 coming in. And we're looking at spending 123,000 on the tennis courts and 15,000 on the millings for Beasley and Bean Lanes. That's more than what we have coming in. We'll be good with the state. Even if we don't spend another dime on anything else, the state will be happy with us.
Plus we already had some money in there as well.
Well, and if we spend more than that, we spend more than that.
Right.
But I feel like with those two items, the Beasley Lane, Bean Lane, and the tennis courts, we're in good shape to spend an appropriate amount of money that the state will stay off our backs. And if we spend more than that, that's fine too. But that's what I heard, so I'm happy.
I'm just gonna bring this one home and close it out, because it's one that y'all need an update on. So the last one was infrastructure and facilities. That is where we had, Councilman, the purchase of some form of property in the city. We are looking at that one. That's also one of these real estate coordinations that I'm working. And then $160,000 in there for, if you look at various forms of building, design, outfitting, and contingency to get the city museum done. That's contingent on some real estate discussions. And then, so also along those lines, there's two grant opportunities we're going to look for that program. The mayor found one with T-Mobile called their Hometown Grants Program, up to $50,000 awarded in a quarterly cycle. But I think this might be a good one, potential for us to apply to. And also the Clay County Tourist Development Council, their grant program has a arts, history, and culture grant where they appropriate, I want to say it's $75,000 to $85,000 a year. We can probably ask for a grant somewhere in that $40,000 to $45,000 range. They're still developing that program, so they don't have the application process built yet, or their scoring matrices. But the county's working on that, and we've been in discussions with them on putting in an application for that probably since mid-November. So, trying to find other people's money to use with ours and get things done.
So, Ski's rule of money, this applies to everything. Either make more money, reduce costs, or spend other people's money. That's how you get things done. And so unless we raise taxes, which I don't particularly like, we find ways to reduce money like you did with our insurance. I'll thank you again for that, and using other people's money, get grants. Those are the three ways to make it happen money-wise. So you're doing all of them. Thank you very much.
Team effort.
Yeah. No,
Finding other people's money, spending other people's money.
Hey, that's why they're
We're finding
out there.
savings. Yes, sir.
They want us
You have to
this.
be vigilant in a search. You have to be focused, and you gotta be willing to dig, and ask all the questions, and it just takes time. I mean, it really eats up a lot of your time, and I know exactly what you're saying.
That's the issue.
That's the tough part.
So many hours in a day.
Yeah.
We're getting there. Unless y'all are had any other questions on the CRA, we can move on to the cemetery. All right, so income is performing as expected, with over execution expected by the end of the fiscal year due to the increase in plot and deed fees that the city council just approved at the last city council meeting. The only significant expenses are the city staff labor reimbursements, the purchase of a mower for about $8,000. That was right towards the end of the fiscal year, early September. We need to get that moved because it was delivered on the 2nd of October. And when we initially got that late delivery of it, we put it into this fiscal year's impact, but in coordination with Rebecca, our CPA, we believe that's appropriate to basically charge back into the previous fiscal year. So we just have to clean up this one. We had 2 mowers come in. One we've got cleaned up that was against the Public Works. This one in the cemetery is still showing in the cemetery fund, and I'll work with Tiffany to get that $8K corrected back into the last fiscal year. And then we've continued on the cemetery improvements that you all approved, I want to say about a year ago. We did get the roof overhauled on the cemetery office or admin building for about $5,000. We've upgraded and repaired the irrigation system for about $1,300. And between security lighting and electrical upgrades in that building, about $2,800. So we've still got to do some door work out there, and once the doors are kind of rehung and rebalanced, that office space will be fully utilizable by the cemetery manager to be operating out of there instead of driving all the equipment over from the Public Works building, which they've been doing for the last few years. So appreciate the city council's support. And I'll pause for any questions on the cemetery fund.
I want to say Matt Stone, is he?
Cole.
Matt Cole?
Matt Cole.
Yes, sir.
He's the one who runs the cemetery.
He does.
Okay. Half of it is in Bradford County.
Yes, sir.
Is that a problem in any way?
We've not noticed any issues or concerns. The one thing Bradford County increased some taxes to pay for their fire rescue. We submitted a notice saying, hey, we got an email saying, you know, you're gonna get charged more in your fees, and I sent a note back and said, thank you, but we're municipal, I don't think that's an issue. We've never heard anything back or any continual attempts for charging. So that was the only Bradford County conflict that I've seen.
Okay.
Other than that, we haven't seen any major concerns, and both split out. But I'm not aware of any other issues between Bradford, Clay County with the split.
Great, okay.
All right. I think that takes us through current year execution. And our next action item, Madam Mayor, would be discussing 2026-27 draft budget. I'll be honest with you, I'm just happy to have figured out current execution. I think some of those big budget areas that we talked about from my perspective, unless y'all have specific ones that y'all want to talk about, correcting those big 3 budget areas for the next fiscal year is the biggest thing that I have of lessons learned from our current execution. But willing to discuss any other concerns or comments that y'all want as we start to look forward to the budget bill for the next fiscal year.
Do you have any thoughts, Mary?
I think so.
My preference would be to set the stage. And what I mean is, in preparation for next year's budget, pull out the audit from 2023, the end of 2023, pull out the audit from the end of 2024. We don't have an audit yet from 2025, but use Tiffany's data and simply use the big numbers. What do I mean by the big numbers? What was the city general fund income for each of those years? What was the city general fund expenses for each of those years? What was the city CRA income for each of those years? What was the infrastructure income for each of those years? And so what we do is we set up with the, 4 different funds. General funds, infrastructure, CRA, and cemetery. And we know from year to year to year, at least the last 3 years, what we had as income and what we have as expenses. And so we can see what kind of trend there is in the big picture. And that's kind of where I'd like to start. My expectation is that our expenses will be a wiggly graph, but our income should be kind of steady. I don't see major changes in our income except perhaps in the way we do accounting because of moving some of the personnel costs out of cemetery and out of infrastructure and out of CRA and putting them into the general fund as expenses. And so that gives us I'll call it a bullseye for the next fiscal year. A big wide range based on what's happened in the history in the past. So as we then start to go through line by line by line and look at next year's budget, we say, well, how's this mirroring what's happened the last 3 fiscal years? And like your analysis, which will prove very valuable in insurance and payroll, that will provide very valuable setting for next year's budget as well as this year's amendments. My question would be if we could set that up for next time, the general stuff, not getting into any details. And then and I'll kind of look at you, if you think we need a current budget amendment to do some of these things that Colonel Booth has already talked about, then we should put that on the February budget. However, my guarding on that is I don't want to have to do a budget amendment every single council meeting.
Right.
And so if you think there's going to be more changes as you go through this process, perhaps we should wait a month or 2 before we do an amendment, like wait till the 6-month point.
Right.
And say we're halfway through the fiscal year, okay, now we really feel like we need an amendment, and we do it then, and then perhaps we need one more in September, right as we get to the end of the fiscal year. Then we don't
Either
have to.
like twice a year or 3 times a year max.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so it's
that's
more
a
like
key-
forward planning.
Yeah, and it's more reflective of what's actually happening.
Right,
And we don't spend a lot of council time on it,
right.
because we don't do it that often.
I
What do you prefer?
Yeah.
I would agree with after the second quarter is complete, that whatever that meeting ends up being,
Yeah.
that we bring a proposed amendment to you all
Yeah.
as part of that one. Hopefully that's our last course correction.
and
But I don't think we
like-
can correct the course after just the first quarter.
Right. So even after the, say our 3rd meeting for the year, at that point, we look at what we need to amend at that point,
Okay.
at that meeting.
That
And then
sounds
put
good.
it at the next council meeting. And then 3 months later, we know it's just automatically on the agenda, what are the amendment items that we need to look at? Like how to amend, what are those things so we can discuss it? And then it goes to that very next month's council meeting. So just like a cadence, so to speak. I mean, 2 or 3 times a year. And whatever they are what they are. And we just take care of them at that period of time. Like it's a scheduled plan thing instead of just random. Yeah. I mean, I think it's gonna be easier on you guys too, I would think.
Yeah.
Mary, I just want to clarify, are you okay doing it at the half-year point and then potentially
Sure.
looking at it at the end of the 3rd quarter? Because once we get to the end of the 3rd quarter, we're effectively, we're in budget build
Right.
at that point.
Yeah,
And
because the way our
so,
year works from October 1 to September 30th. So whatever those 3 months are, we just identify, or if it's every 6 months, whatever that date is. And we look at it that 6th month, let's say it's May, I don't know, May. And then we look at what needs to be amended and what those dollars are at our budget meeting. And then in June, it's on the agenda
Correct.
for council to vote on. But after we've analyzed it and all the details, right?
Right, so I would slightly tweak that, just my recommendation, and that is 6 months ends March 31st.
Okay.
And so we have a meeting in April, a finance meeting, we figure out our amendment,
Mhm.
and then we apply that to the May council meeting, so yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
but the second one, I want to get that one, my personal preference, as close to actual numbers as possible.
Yeah, so closer to September.
So closer to September, right?
Yeah.
So I would wait till our we may even have a late August, finance committee meeting.
Mhm.
So that in the September council meeting, we can have an amendment that as close as possible corrects our budget
Yeah.
to reflect the actual expenditures up to that point.
Right, and we can always massage those dates as they need to be done, but, I think the biggest piece is having a set schedule and having it, to try to do more at one event versus it spread all out.
Yeah.
Right, it makes it a lot more efficient.
Oh, I think we said the August meeting of this group, so it's ready for the September city council
That's the
meeting?
second time.
The second
That's the
time,
second time. Yeah.
I got you. Yes, ma'am.
And then the first time we'll do it, I guess, is May, right, you said?
A May council meeting,
So, yeah,
April
April
budget
finance.
finance meeting.
right,
right.
using the first 6 months through March 31st.
So basically, yeah, right. April and August would be when we're looking at it, and then May and September for council to see it. Right?
Yep,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Long-term, so we're on number 8, long-term financial discussions. No property tax income or capital improvement plan. Councilman Lewandowski, I think you mentioned this one.
Yeah, so for, in my mind, there are 3 tasks of this committee. The first task is current budget, execution, and approved budgeting. The second task is preparation, development of next year's budget. And the third one is what I call long-term financial discussion. When I was in the Air Force, we called it PPB&E, planning, programming, budgeting, and execution. And it was a 5-year process that we planned. We had different colors of money, 3600 money, 3080 money, 3200 money, and they all had different purposes, and we all had to put them in the right buckets and plan for years out, and blah, 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 blah. Well, let's simplify that. Let's just call it long-term planning and say, okay, we all agree about the museum, but that's not gonna happen tomorrow. We're gonna have to figure out what kind of design we want, we're gonna have to vote and decide, then we're gonna have to go through a bidding process, then it's gonna take some construction time. This could be a 2-3 year project, I don't know how long. Hopefully it doesn't take that long, but in my experience it does in government. And if we have something like we did with Lake Geneva project, where the first bid goes out and everything goes south, you know, then we gotta start all over again, and who knows? That to me is a long-term project. And so I would like to plan for that, you know, and say, okay, the museum, that's a long-term project. It's not just building a building. It's a lot more than that.
So I think some of the options we're looking at for the museum is not gonna be a long-term project.
Okay?
And I think that's something that we can do, rather soon, without a whole lot of cost to arrive at a goal. I think we have a couple of other options that we have not openly talked about yet, that Jamie's working on presenting to us, which are also pretty cool options.
Okay.
So, and they may require some other, ways to find the money. But I do not see it as something we're gonna spend a lot of time on, recreating the wheel with it. It's either gonna be buying existing property or renovating current property.
All right, so maybe
So,
I'll pick the
like a
bad
small-
example. But I think there's long-term projects, we call it the government complex, if that's how we vote to go. And that's a long-term
That's a
project.
very long-term project.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, and so what I'm saying is, if we aren't planning for that financially, if we don't have discussions and plans, our luck in getting support from Tallahassee or Clay County or anyone else is about 0.
Right. I mean, I think with this whole museum thing, this is, to look at with monies that we currently have in hand. And, but, cause like you're talking about, like a bigger project would be, like you said, Tallahassee and getting all their support and all the time like that. I think we just have to see what our options are, and then we can better know what the plan is gonna be. We just have a few outlying project opportunities, I call it.
Yes, ma'am.
That we haven't openly discussed yet.
And Councilman, I've got you. I mean, it's just a drawn out of, hey, what's our $5,000 or $1 more asset list? When do those go bad? How do we slowly plan funds to plan the replacement? And, if we're also looking at our capital improvement plan for infrastructure throughout the city, it all messes together. I'm with you.
Sorry. Well, like, one of the other things that we haven't talked about for months now is the fishing pier.
Sorry, I'm in the middle of the budget meeting.
Okay, what's going on with that?
Yeah,
You know?
I can just answer that question, but I know you're going somewhere else with the
Right,
issue.
well, no, I'm just like, we need to put all these things down on a long-term plan and say, okay, this is what we wanna have a fishing pier, we wanna have, I don't know, we want the county to improve the, what do they call it, where you put your boat in the water?
Boat ramp.
Boat ramp.
Yeah.
Right, we want the county to improve the boat ramp and boat parking, we want to, I don't know, improve the signs around town, especially pet project of mine is whenever you enter the city limits, I'd like there to be a little sign. They have this in Orange Park. Every little single tiny side street has a sign. You know exactly where the city limits end and start. I would really like that. The signs that we have give people the wrong impression. Coming in from Middleburg, there's a sign way out by Gasline Road. It says, "Welcome to Keystone Heights." Everybody thinks they're now in Keystone Heights. They're nowhere near the city limits, way out there by Gasline Road. And so that would be another thing that I would put on this long-term thing. It's not gonna happen overnight. It's gonna take a while. But I wanna get that started. What is all the stuff that we wanna do? There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff.
The other issue on here that you brought up, and I think it's probably just worth discussing broadly, is does the state vote on and go to no ad valorem / property tax? A lot of discussion, and I say this because the public, I know y'all both been following a lot of it, will it be proposed by the legislature to go on the ballot next voting cycle of removal of ad valorem taxes for municipalities and counties? A lot of discussion on that. I'll just say simple education right now. The simple number, if you just look at our budget sheet, right now is about, for us, $360,000 is our ad valorem proceeds that are in the general fund. And so if you just stay on that one, it just round it up, let's make it easy and say it's about $400,000 a year. If you look at our overall income at roughly 1.6, 1.5, 1.6, that brings us down somewhere around $1.1 million in income. And what does the city do in that situation? We do need to start discussing that, and we'll see how the voting goes at the legislature, and then potentially the voting of the citizens on what does that impact when you lose out of the general fund for about $400,000-ish of income, and where do we pare back on what the city's doing. The other side is the community redevelopment agency effectively at that point would cease to operate because its sole source of funding is ad valorem property taxes that come in for the community redevelopment area. And so at that point, if it was shut down, we would just close off whatever actions we have with existing funds and move effectively to general fund operations. Just broadly, those would be the two areas of impact right now. Haven't done any detailed analysis on where you take those cuts, what either services or functions of the city start to back down to reduce those expenses.
I know that Florida League of Cities put together a toolkit on how to use your municipality within that toolkit to predict what you might see as a result if they do go away.
Mm-hmm.
So you can look at areas to either pull the money from, or I haven't tried it out yet, but I have seen plenty of information on it. The other thing with CRA money, my understanding is, because it is unknown, we don't know what they're gonna do. Everything I'm hearing, it's not gonna happen anytime real soon. Probably gonna be a couple of years, because they don't have a plan on what they're gonna replace it with. And that was told to me directly by someone who's on the steering committee. So there is no plan that I'm aware of anyway. And I've heard that backed up as well. So to me, it's sort of like, you spend the money because it's there, just make sure you spend the money. Because the other thing I understood was, have the money tagged, like you said, to go towards something, like we have a plan. And you wanna spend, like, we wanna spend that money. And so, and we have been spending some of it, and we're gonna spend it for sure. I mean, you wanna ask me about spending Sarah, I could tell you a zillion things I'd spend it on. But, I think that we have to just go forward like we don't, like nothing's changed, and we spend all that money up. And so when they come and say to us that you're not gonna have any more, then we don't have it, and we spend it for what we needed to do, and then we will have to figure out whatever. We just don't know what they're gonna do. We have no idea what they're gonna do to replace it. They're gonna have to find something. Because it's gonna take, what is it, how many, municipalities did they say? I mean, there's 411 in the state, so it's several hundred are gonna be heavily affected by this, heavily. And, the bigger cities don't have to worry so much because they have plenty of money from all kinds of stuff. We just don't have the types of resources they have.
So it
So,
would be done in phases to 2037.
yeah, it sounds like it's
In
gonna
10
be
years.
in phases.
Well, it all
So-
depends on what they pass.
It depends on what they
Yeah,
Right.
so that's what's on the floor right now.
Yeah.
From the Florida League of Cities,
Mhm.
there, this fall, they worked on 8 different plans. Okay, and 4 of those have made it further in the process. But like you said, there's a lot of confusion because they're all different.
Yeah.
Now, the plan that I heard that has the most backing right now, although it's not 50% of the legislators, this is being pushed by Governor DeSantis.
Right.
And the thing with Governor DeSantis, if I understand correctly, is he terms out
Yeah.
this November. So he will no longer be the governor. So it appears that there is an effort to stall until he's no longer the governor. And then this whole thing will die. So that's one option.
One strategy.
Yes, it's a strategy because most of the legislatures are like, we don't like this, we don't, you know,
Oh, yeah.
we don't, they just don't like it. But the plan that does have the most support is not an elimination of property taxes. So that's a misnomer. The plan is an increase in homestead exemption. And it would take 10 years, and every year it go up by 10%, and you'd get $200,000 in homestead exemption. And so what it effectively does is it helps the middle class and lower with paying property taxes.
Offsetting their tax, the property
Right,
tax, right?
but any piece of property more than $200,000, they're still paying property taxes. So what you're doing is you're making the corporations and the richer people pay property taxes.
Mhm.
So that one seems to be getting more traction than anything else. And so I try to stay away from the phrase elimination of property taxes. It looks like if they go anywhere right now, it's an increase in the homestead exemption, eventually up to $200,000. Oh, and by the way, there's caveats. You just can't move into Florida and get an immediate homestead exemption. You have to live here 10 years. Then you get the homestead exemption for $200,000. So, so they're trying to protect the Floridians, and they're trying to protect the budgets of cities. There's still impacts. And so to offset it, I've heard sales tax increase to anywhere from 17% to as high as 43%. Now, no one wants to do 43%. 43% is if all the property taxes go away and the only thing you have to recover that is sales tax, then you would have to potentially go to a 43% sales tax. But no one is actually proposing that.
Yeah.
It's just a data point.
Mhm.
But still, a 17% sales tax would be very large.
Oh, yeah.
And so, as the mayor said, and I'll agree, there's confusion, there's discussion, nobody knows what's going to happen. They do at the Northeast Florida League of Cities meetings say, please talk to your leaders, please talk to your congressmen, senators in Tallahassee, and just tell them this is a bad idea. And hopefully it'll go away.
They're definitely hearing it. I know the Florida League of Mayors is all over it.
Yeah.
trying
Well, that, I gotta say,
Wow.
the Florida League of Cities has really got our backs.
Oh, absolutely.
They really are working to help the cities. You know, and so if and when we have a problem, they're the ones that really help. And I thank you again for appointing me to that board. You know, we have 23
I'm so
municipalities.
happy you're on it, I think it's great.
Yeah, going to the meeting, I gotta share this with you, I'll talk, if you got time,
Sure.
okay. So we're at the meeting Thursday night, we're in St. Augustine at the Rod and Gun Club, and the speaker is the mayor from Sanibel Island, and they got clobbered with that hurricane and everything. And she thanks the people who organized the event generically, and she thanks the city leaderships generically, and then she says, but there's one man in this entire room I gotta point out. His name is Colonel Booth.
Oh.
He was the head of the engineers, the Corps of Engineers. And I knew him before the hurricane.
Oh, wow.
And when the hurricane hit, he was there like nothing. He was there. What can we do? How can we help? And with him and the support from the governor and everybody else, but he was the only one by name she called out. And she said, whatever, I hear he's a city manager now. Whatever
You can't
city,
have him.
well, whatever city he's with, you are so lucky. That's what she said.
That
I'm
was
like,
very sweet of her to
yes,
do
we
that.
are, and nobody else can have him. So I
That's
just wanted to share that with you.
very nice, yeah.
And he
Sorry,
got
I
a
didn't miss it.
huge compliment. Wendy was there, she heard it too.
Yeah, very sweet.
Last Thursday night,
Yeah.
he was recognized as he should have been.
Well, talking about team effort, there was this Corps of Engineers employee who called me. We kind of came in behind the hurricane next day. She's like, I haven't heard from the mayor. Can you go find her? She said, last time I heard she was at this hotel. And so I always talk to relationships matter.
Yeah.
That relationship mattered because then Mayor Holly Smith, she's like, have you been to the County Emergency Operations Center? I'm like, no, I don't even know where it's at. And so I'm like, okay, I'll go to the Emergency Operations Center. So I go there, I run into a county commissioner who pulls me into a meeting, and it's the governor, Senator Rubio at the time, FDEP, the emergency, federal emergency, FEMA regional director in there, and they're all talking about issues. I'd have been running around there and lost in the sauce if it hadn't been for Mayor Holly Smith getting me to that location. So relationships matter.
Oh, yeah. That's great. I'm glad she did that.
Yeah.
Very sweet.
It made me very.
Yeah, very proud.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, we'll just cross that bridge with this whole property tax stuff. We'll just have to wait and see what's gonna happen. Meantime, we're just gonna spend that money, find a way to spend it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Let's just go along as if nothing's gonna happen.
We're just gonna do like our thing. That's what I'm hearing from the other mayors. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And, cause we just can't control, we can only control what we know we have to deal with,
Right,
right?
we can
can't
spin
predict.
it, right. We can spin our wheels doing what-if exercises for
Yeah,
forever.
I appreciate you sharing that too about, some of the play that's going on there. Cause I know that they are not, in general, not happy with that effort there to say, because it sounds good. It's a political play. That's all I can call it.
Especially if he's gonna run for president or whatever, you know?
So I think that we just have to go with what we know we have and not worry about it.
The only thing I think might realistically happen is some kind of adjustment to homestead exemptions. And give Floridans some more homestead exemptions. And that could reduce by a small amount our property taxes. That's the other thing.
Along those lines, I think the one thing that makes sense for us to invest a little bit of time in, and I've got a note just to reach out to the property appraiser or the tax collector's office and just see within the city of Keystone Heights city limits, how many of our, 400, I'm losing track, how many properties we have, how many of those are homesteaded, and how many are not, just so we can kind of understand rough order of magnitude
What
of
that round number
what any
looks
changes
like.
that come down, if it somewhere in that spectrum is where things will end up. But having a general understanding would be helpful.
And also the ones that are over 200,000.
If that were the number.
Right, if that were the number, anymore, I'm not sure we have hardly anything under 200.
That's what I'm thinking.
I mean, it was when I moved here, but now I don't think so. I think that's pretty hard to identify. or that they're here, you know, so.
And one other thing that I have talked about over the years, did I just lose it? Oh, is, and this is a task really for our city attorney. And that is to put online the forms for inclusion in the city limits. So that if anyone who's adjacent to our boundary would like to become part of the city
So for annexation?
for annexation, all they have to do is go online, download the form, fill out the form, and submit the form. And that's it. But we need the city attorney to do that. And I believe he's got connections with other municipalities where he can just take something, copy and change it. Yeah, it should not be that difficult for him. But I've said this for years. We have so many people who believe they are in the city limits and they are not. Let's give them the opportunity. Let's make it an option. They can become actual city members if they just fill out the right form.
I'll chat with him. We have a discussion about once a week where we go through all the list items, so I'll chat with Rich about that. Madam Mayor, the last item we've got is scheduling either the next meeting or when we want to try and get reoccurring, or at least over the next year. I think we generally discussed this. I can't remember where we landed. My initial point of departure might be the third Thursday in the morning. But I can't remember, Councilman Lewandowski, if that conflicted for you.
I'm pretty open.
Yeah, so thank you. I appreciate you taking that into account very much. My schedule this spring and next fall is set. And I will have no commitments, although I always go into work, on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And because of the number of Monday holidays, Tuesday morning is the optimal. But I understand about your conflicts, and that's probably not gonna work. Because like this weekend, I got to stay home all weekend and come in here in the morning, and as soon as I leave here, I'm heading straight to Daytona Beach. But it appears that Thursday mornings would be a better option. And so what I would do is I would teach my classes on Wednesday when I have office hours until 5 p.m. on Wednesday. So then I would get my stuff together and I would head home. I'll spend the night here in Keystone Heights. And then if we have, a 9 o'clock meeting or something like that, on Thursday, I'll come into the meeting and I'll do just like I'm doing today. Then I'll get in my car and head back to Daytona Beach. Teach on Friday, go on from there. So that would be my preference. If Tuesday is a no-go, then please put it Thursday morning.
So the Tuesday though, it was just the third Tuesday, right?
It's the third Tuesday, that's correct.
So what about the second Tuesday?
The only concern I would have with that is often we may not be done with reconciling the books with Rebecca. If y'all were okay with unreconciled numbers, then Tiffany.
I'm pretty confident. that-
What about the fourth Tuesday?
I think any of I don't have a problem with second or fourth. Fourth definitely gives us plenty of time to get things
Basically,
together
what she's
after we
saying,
close it all
and
out.
that helps him, so
clean
he's not
things up.
having to do the back and forth thing. I
And
mean-
certainly that would work well
I mean, I'm-
Memorial Day weekend.
I'm fine with the fourth Tuesday of each month.
Okay.
Right now,
Just go real quick then.
Right, so let me ask the staff this.
Oh,
If we-
staff meeting.
If we do the fourth Tuesday in April, that's when we're scheduled to figure out the amendments. Then we wanna turn around the first Monday in May. Will the staff have enough time
to get the council meeting.
to get ready for the council meeting? But let me also say that I'm about to hand you a
That only be
request.
twice a year though.
Right, but I'm also gonna hand you a request to move the May council meeting.
Okay.
And to talk about it the February. And the reason is my son graduates from college out in California, And if it's the first Monday in May, I won't be here because I'm gonna be at my son's graduation. If we delayed it for a week and did it the second Monday in May, then I can be here. And so I'm gonna ask for forgiveness and your condolences, or whatever it is, and ask to move the meeting to the second Monday in May.
Looking at the city's calendar, I don't see any significant issues on Monday, the 11th of May, for that particular move that you're mentioning.
So then we'd have plenty of time then, if we did it the fourth Tuesday every month.
Yeah.
Okay?
So fourth Tuesday, and then what I would ask is, could we do we did this done at 10, if that worked out enough, could we do a 10 o'clock meeting instead of a 9? Well, you know what, actually, I can just shift that particular day, I can shift the staff meeting later. We can just get 9
I'm
o'clock.
fine with 10.
10's fine.
10's fine?
It's close enough.
Okay,
Just not 1 o'clock.
Yeah, 10 o'clock.
so we'll go 10 to 12-ish, fourth Tuesday.
Okay.
And the next, let me go back to that, just to state what that is for February. So for February, that's gonna be Tuesday, the 24th.
Correct.
And then also, I've got the action item, we'll just discuss, Councilman moving the May meeting to the second Monday.
Yeah, that's a request I'll have for our February city council meeting.
Now, if I'll be able to decipher all the notes on this sheet of paper for action items, will be great.
You don't get any lunch
You don't seem
today.
to have any problems following it, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, he makes good notes.
That's all right.
Well, ask these two ladies when they try and read said notes, how good those notes are.
Listen.
Generally, the I's aren't dotted, the T's aren't crossed, half of them are misspelled,
I don't
and
even know if
sometimes,
sometimes they're a word.
sometimes I don't use all the letters.
But hey, we navigate through it.
So I used to work for a Iranian pathologist who wrote in Farsi.
Oh, no.
Wow.
And we're talking science stuff in the lab. Like she wanted me to go, I think you go do this, and you make this, make this, whatever, procedure. And, so I'm all about trying to decipher communications. It's like, oh my God. Yeah, so yeah, it's okay. Sign of genius.
About that,
Yeah.
in this case.
Well, are we done?
Yes, ma'am, unless y'all have any comments or concerns, that is all the staff
Yeah,
items we
made a lot of
have.
headway. Any more comments, Dave?
Thank you for all your work. I know this is not exactly fun, but it's really important that we do this. Thank you.
Thank you
Well,
very
I
much.
think the efforts in standardizing, that we've been seeing in the last 12 months for sure, is definitely gonna help as we move forward. We had so many like crazy bumps over the last couple of years, so I'm really happy to see that going on. I think it's gonna be good for everybody overall. All right.